Hi everyone, I'm Amber. I'm the venture manager at New Order. Essentially, I'm managing all the projects in our DeFi Base Camp accelerator program. That's a program we launched in partnership with Outlier Ventures to help early stage DeFi projects to grow and launch. Giving them all the resources they need to be successful and bring new innovation to DeFi. So we have concluded our first cohort recently and graduated 6 teams. Kima is one of them. We have one of the founders, Eitan, with us here today. Welcome, Eitan.
Thank you.
I'm sure we'll go into the details of the project in a minute, but in one sentence, Kima is addressing the cross-chain liquidity problem, which is a huge problem in this space that has manifested itself in the last few months. A lot of smart contract exploits, protocol hacks has led to the loss of massive user funds. I think the number is in the billions. So what Kima wants to solve is this cross-chain liquidity problem using a more secured approach by building a layer 1 infrastructure. Welcome, Eitan. So can you please give us a short self-introduction?
Yeah, sure. So a little bit about myself. I started my tech career a long time ago. I started as a young soldier, got drafted to the Israeli army as a developer. So I was a young programmer, got trained to be one in the army school of software, computer science, and since then I went through several roles in the IT industry in Israel, both small startups, huge companies, startups that were acquired by companies. And I fell into the crypto rabbit hole back in 2013. My first project was a side project. It was an open source Bitcoin wallet that we wanted it to be the most user-friendly and secure wallet. And that was a completely open source project for the community. And since then, I advised and was part of several other startups.
That's awesome. So in terms of Kima, can you tell us a bit more on what it is and how it's different than the current approaches?
A player. In fact, we start by solving the fragmentation. Okay. So Kima is an infrastructure project. We look at the fragmentation across blockchains, especially in liquidity. But the vision is really larger. We see blockchain digital assets as an asset class, but we want to enable cross-chain and cross-ecosystem interoperable transactions. Today, it's between blockchains, but in the future, it could also include fiat. So basically, we want to be this infrastructure that makes the transfers completely seamless for app developers, abstracting away the complexity, the security problems and vulnerabilities, and also the efficiency challenges in maintaining and managing those transfers.
Yeah, so as I understand, Kima is a IBC-based layer 1, and it does not rely, it has its own set of validators to verify transactions. So it does not rely on the smart contract functions, so it's not subject to exploits. And on top of that, I know there's a unique features on liquidity management. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so what really makes us different is the combination of the unparalleled security and efficiency. So indeed, we are built as an independent utility-specific blockchain on top of the Cosmos SDK. And on the security side, and of course, you cannot have one without the other. So you need to have, it goes without saying that you need to have a secure network. But if it's not efficient enough, it doesn't really fulfill its purpose. So on the security side, as you mentioned, we built from the ground up a solution that really addresses the known vulnerabilities. In the past year alone, over $2 billion were stolen through bridge hacks, only bridges, hacks. And we analyzed what really caused these various types of vulnerabilities, and we completely eliminated them. For instance, smart contracts, which is an attack surface area. We don't have any smart contracts in our solution. We don't have oracles, which are also vulnerable. We don't have external relayers. So it's important to understand what we don't have. We do have additional layers of security. We use Intel SGX, which provides a hardware component that stores the shares of the secret, which makes it even more difficult to hack into a system. Typically, it requires physical access to the node to hack this enclave, this hardware-based enclave. We also have a unique consensus mechanism, which is split into two parts in order to reconcile security and decentralization. So we don't think that it's a dilemma that it's either or. So we have a set of validators, and that is a permissionless tier of validators. And they validate the transactions, but we don't allow them to sign the withdrawals. And there's another layer of signers or payers that we whitelist, and these are the ones who can withdraw or actually sign the withdrawal transaction, but they cannot come up with the validated transaction. So we actually split the validation part from the action signing part, which is similar to how states are being governed. So you have the parliament who makes the rules, and then based on these rules, the government needs to execute. The government cannot define its own rules. Every execution is derived from the rules made by the parliament. So this is the type of two layers that we created, and then that creates yet another layer of security. On the efficiency part, since we base our solution on liquidity pools, the biggest concern in that kind of architecture is that a pool will get drained for various reasons. And for that, we have a special liquidity management algorithm that monitors the state of the pools. And if a pool gets beyond or below a certain level of supply, it automatically adjusts the fees to discourage liquidity takers, and we pay those fees to the liquidity providers. So it's a win-win situation. Liquidity providers that help us maintain the equilibrium in the system, they get additional rewards, which come from the takers of the liquidity, which have to pay higher fees to then compensate the providers to replenish those pools.
Yeah, that's awesome. I really like the, have two layers of a different set of validators for check and balances. And also, I think the liquidity management is not just using interest rate to adjust the returns for liquidity providers. It's also provide a visual on how much liquidity being utilized in those individual liquidity pools, so you don't have like access liquidity just sitting there idly. That's awesome.
Exactly. Yeah. So we put a lot of emphasis on the capital efficiency. So if money sits in a pool with very high TVL, and this money doesn't serve its purpose, then we're actually hurting the capital efficiency. And we want the capital to be deployed where it's mostly needed. So we constantly monitor. We know what is the distribution of the transactions, and we compensate liquidity providers to put their liquidity where it's mostly needed.
Yeah, that's awesome. So as you mentioned that Kima is an infrastructure layer and you bring on developers to build new use cases on top of Kima. So can you give us an example? What are some use cases you think is best suited for this cross-chain liquidity?
Yeah, sure. So that's a great point. We're not targeting retail. We're not a bridge. A bridge can be built on top of Kima. That is the most naive use case of just transferring assets from one blockchain to the other. But that is not the interesting part. Basically, our value proposition for developers is that we enable them to reach out to users that today cannot be their users. So let me give you an example. Let's take a payment use case. You're creating an NFT marketplace on Solana. By determining that you're going to build it on Solana, you actually also made a very strategic decision that you're only going to target Solana users. Now, with Kima, you can now extend your potential user base and allow Ethereum and Polygon and Phantom and Cardano users and any chain that is supported by Kima to actually buy those NFTs just by pointing their wallet, and that's it. So at that point, a payment, a multi-chain, a cross-chain payment transaction can take place seamlessly. And the app developer doesn't have to do anything beyond just integrating the Kima SDK with just a couple lines of code. That's just one example. Another example is wallets. We see a lot of interest from wallet projects that want to become multi-chain. We all know this very problematic user experience, even in MetaMask. If MetaMask supports multiple chains, but not at the same time, not concurrently. So if I want to move my Polygon USDC into my Ethereum wallet, I have to use a bridge, which is an external tool. So we want wallets to abstract this complexity altogether and just enable this movement in a streamlined manner. That's the wallet use case. And one last use case maybe is we see a lot of interest from DeFi projects. I can just give you one example. Let's take a lending borrowing application where you have to put some collateral and then you can borrow. Now, today, the collateral and the borrowed asset need to be in the same chain. What if you could use an asset that you have on another chain as a collateral and borrow into that chain and not requiring the collateral and the borrowed asset to reside on the same chain? So this is how we look at the abstraction of these silos between the blockchains. And this seems to be a very compelling value proposition for app developers.
Absolutely. Like I'm really excited to, actually see those applications come to life on Kima. I think liquidity segmentation is a huge problem. It's a pain for most of the DeFi protocols and dApps. It's really brilliant to have a solution like that. So Kima is a big project. I'm wondering what's their product roadmap for the next 12 months? What's Kima focusing on right now?
Yeah, so we're at the stage of testnet right now. We're in a closed testnet, but next month, beginning of Q4, we're going to open this testnet, and we're going to do our first few integrations. We're now in discussions with several applications to become our early adopters. So the first few integrated applications are expected in Q4, running on our testnet. Then the next phase is obviously mainnet, so that's planned for end of Q4 or beginning of Q1 of next year. running a mainnet initially on using our MVP in a controlled manner, and then after a few months of tests to open all the limitations and constraints that we're going to put. In addition, we plan to extend the networks that we support. By the way, our ability to extend our supported networks is really unique. It took us 6 hours to add Avalanche to be supported. And that's because we don't need smart contracts. So basically, it's a matter of hours. We don't need to develop a smart contract, deploy it, audit, test, maintain it. None of this is required. And that is part of the architecture that we came up with. So we will extend the availability based on the demand from the application developers. In addition, next year we'll also plan to start working with financial institutions. We see some initial interest here due to the security and also some compliance features that we plan for next year. In a financial institution setup, which is a slightly different setup because it requires KYC and AML to the users. But in that setup, we can provide institutions a very high level of traceability, which is aligned with their compliance needs. And the last part in our 12-month roadmap is the introduction of fiat. We plan to also plug in fiat liquidity pools hosted in custody of banks, and that will enable an on-ramp and off-ramp solution without the need of an exchange. No OTC, no exchange. Just use Kima to, as I mentioned, we look at these transactions as heterogeneous transactions. So you can send US dollars and get USDC on your MetaMask in a seamless manner using the exact same infrastructure.
That's awesome. Thank you for the updates. Sounds like it's going to be a busy 12 months for you.
Yeah.
So I understand Kima has closed 2 previous rounds. Is there any plan to open another round? I think the audience will also be interested to learn more about TGE as well.
Okay, yeah, sure. So actually, as we speak, we're starting another round. We're going to raise $2 million. Yeah, that's really a hot news. We're starting it now. And that is to enable getting additional talent into the team and accelerate our execution plans. TGE is planned end of the year or maybe beginning of next year. Again, we have to see how we move forward and the market sentiment. But we link our fundraising steps to our progress with the product. So we set milestones, and whenever we hit a milestone, a major milestone, we go out for another round, and that happened now. So just end of last month, beginning of this, we hit a major milestone of integrating the liquidity management algorithm and the consensus mechanism. They now work in tandem, and this is why we are now raising another round. So TGE, yeah, given market sentiment, planned for probably early 23.
That's great to know. I'm glad I asked this question. It has become an alpha drop that you're opening around. I know many of the investors in our network will be interested. Awesome, congratulations. So let's talk a little bit more about DeFi Base Camp. So as one of the first teams graduated from Base Camp, can you tell us a bit more about your experience with it?
Yeah, so I must say that before starting, I was very skeptical. I'm not a big fan of accelerators, and I know many of them, and I was cautiously optimistic but skeptical. And I must say that it really exceeded my expectations, and we are, as a team, we're very happy that we went through this process. What really helped us was the fact that we had a one-stop shop, basically. This project, our project, and many others, and I have a lot of experience in tech products and very relatively complex projects and enterprise software. And I must say that this is something that is beyond everything I did in the past. There are so many moving parts here. You have to be an economics expert, technologist, security expert, even game theory and social expert. So, not to mention marketing and community building, and so many moving parts. And joining Basecamp really felt like we got to the right place, because we had a person to go to with any question, whether it was strategic, whether it was economic, financial, investment, getting talent, technology questions. Every aspect, we had an expert and someone that was available for us. So that really, and I think that was the first time I saw a framework that really deserves the name accelerator, because this really accelerated our progress.
I'm so glad to hear that. I think, yeah, the program is definitely structured in a way that, because we recognize the founders have the challenges dealing with all those moving parts, moving pieces when launching a startup in a short amount of time. So to give a little bit of context, our program, it divided into 3 phases in 12 weeks. So the first phase will be mentor matching, having you talk to the industry experts, setting the OKRs, your goals. And then the second phase is workshops and working with all the in-house experts, as you mentioned, on various parts of your startup, like legal, marketing, product roadmap, so on and so forth. And the last phase is when you're ready, we develop those fundraising materials and put you in front of investors and liquidity providers for you to gain that first product market fit. So I think from educational content, sorry, this is my cat. I'm sorry about that. So from educational to practical, and from developing a strategy to actually talk to the stakeholders, your go-to-market partners. I think what we want to create is this streamlined, structured process, so the founders understand when to do what. Yeah, I'm so glad to hear that you actually found the program valuable. So my last question, as a founder, for the future founders in DeFi who might be listening right now, what's the one piece of advice you would like to give them?
Yeah, so I would say, if I had to really summarize it in one word, is get real, and I'll explain. We've seen since DeFi summer in 2020 and last year bull run, we've seen many nice ideas, but unfortunately the distance between an idea and getting a real real life product is very, the distance is very big. So my advice to entrepreneurs would be get real with first of all some kind of a business model, some revenue model. So you have to explain, and revenue doesn't necessarily have to be purely monetary. There has to be some metric for success, that this is the goal. This is what you're in to make. Especially infrastructure projects, sometimes it's hard to measure them in a monetary way, but still there has to be some very definite metric for why are you doing what you're doing, what are you up to change, and how do you know that you're successful. The second part is define the real value and understand whom you're providing this value. So you need to understand what's your target, who's your target audience, what's the exact value, and go out and validate the value. Don't just assume things. And the third part is get real with a real product. Real product means real security, real quality, real user experience. Only this way you can be successful, because just putting some GitHub repos and hoping for the best, probably that might have worked 2 years ago. Right now, this is not the way to do it. So yeah, you need to put some hard work and build a real product.
Those are wonderful advice. I can't agree more. Thank you so much, Eitan. I think we're ready to conclude. Thank you everyone for being here with us today. DeFi Base Camp is still accepting new applicants. And if you're interested to learn more, or you're interested to be connected with Kima, please reach out to our social media platforms like YouTube and Twitter. And our job is to nurture founders, support founders in DeFi space. And if you're building something new, bringing new innovation to DeFi, we're always happy to talk to you. Thank you so much, and see you next time.